This program was first broadcast on Canterbury's access media station, Plains FM, and was made with the assistance of New Zealand On Air.
It's time for Emergence News on Plains FM 96.9, citizen-made radio.
Tēnā koutou katoa, greetings to you from wherever you might be, and welcome to Emergence News, broadcast to you from Christchurch's very own community access radio, Plains FM. Today is a beautiful day. The sky is blue and the sun is shining. And as we're in Aotearoa, New Zealand, the southern hemisphere is now moving into our autumn, an incredibly beautiful time of year, full of colourful falling leaves and incredible sunset skies. We live on such a beautiful planet, and I hope that wherever you are living and whatever your season, you remember to take some time every day to appreciate what is beautiful, happy and harmonious in your life. For any listeners who might be tuning into the programme for the first time, let me share with you what our mission here is on Emergence News. We are a global group of volunteers who tell the story of Maitreya, the great Lord of Love, who is finally walking among humanity once again. The so-called second coming is actually happening in our midst. Rather than appearing in great glory, heralded by angels and with great fanfare, as some imagine the second coming would be, he has come quietly like a thief in the night. He is preparing humanity for the public declaration of his coming, working behind the scenes and gradually emerging into the consciousness of human beings. When enough of us are aware and prepared for his public presence, his emergence will be complete. Hence our mission, preparing for the emergence into full view of the great Lord of Love. We do this by sharing on this programme what we know about this process, telling it as a story for your consideration, without any need or desire to convince. Your response is yours alone. A little more about the background story. Maitreya arrived in 1977. He was not born of a woman. He created his own body suited for the task ahead of him. It is called a Maya and is constructed of the atomic particles needed to withstand the energy of love he wields for the benefit of humanity, whilst being dense enough for us to be able to see him as a man. From what we've been told by those who have met him, he appears as an Asian man around 33 years old and 6 foot 2 inches tall. However, he can create any body by thought at will and has made many appearances to different people in different forms. The love energy he wields is known as the Christ principle, which Maitreya embodies and spreads abroad, stimulating the same principle in each of us. He says he does not come to bring peace, even though that is what his essence is. He knows that by stimulating this love energy in people, it will create polarization, something we have often called the sword of cleavage. What happens and what is happening is, if you love your fellow human beings and see yourself connected to all, you will be stimulated to express that love in service to your human family and to our home planet. If, however, you love power and money, the greed for more is stimulated. We can certainly witness both these reactions getting stronger in the battles being waged around the world. This is especially reflected in the political and economic arenas, which dominate the choices we are making at the moment. They have become the frontline face of the challenges we are facing as a human family. How do we bring this love aspect to become the dominant force? How do we bring harmony and justice out of the chaos that surrounds us? I'm going to turn to John and Peter and see what they're going to bring that might enlighten us towards this.
I'm not promising enlightenment. It's a long way off yet. I'm looking at some of Benjamin Creme's thoughts about new civilization, and he's focusing on like at an individual level, which I found quite interesting.
Yeah. And Peter, what about you?
Yes, well, I've sort of entitled mine Enlightenment in the New Age, and so I'm just going to throw a few little points in there which we can discuss with regard to what's going to happen in the way of enlightenment.
Great. So stay tuned and we will attempt to unpack some of our understanding and ideas for you. Sharing our story is a reminder for us too on the steps we have taken, are taking and need to take to help us go forward into a new, harmonious way of living our lives on planet Earth. Okay, Peter, so we're going to turn to you. You're going to start us off.
Thanks, Shafia. Yes, well, I've entitled this Enlightenment in the New Age. And the fact that humanity actually stands on the threshold of the first initiation in the not too distant future is the result of the cry of humanity during the World War for a more just society, which brought forward Maitreya, and he came to answer this cry.
So what does it mean to be on the step of the first initiation?
Well, it's the long path towards mastering the lessons of this planet, of a dense physical body and materialistic society that we've got at the moment, to spiritualise it. That is basically in a nutshell.
And it's also, isn't it, the stimulating of the love energy?
Yes, indeed. Maitreya comes in, he brings this increased love wisdom ray, the ray 2, and of course he is overshadowed by two great avatars as well. And one of them has 12 levels of cosmic consciousness. And so they will stimulate, we're actually a ray 2 solar system, so love wisdom is like our keynote, if you like, on this planet. And but Maitreya also wields aspects of ray 1, which is not the actual destructive part of the ray 1, but he'll bring in the energy of light, which will actually transform our world and help create a new civilization. Of course, he has also comes with a sort of cleavage, which you mentioned. We've got to actually decide whether we want to be a materialistic society or realise the spirituality of all life.
Our true nature. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and this is who we are. We are actually souls in incarnation, and so we are spiritual beings, as we all know. And we're having a life here on a dense physical planet. According to the master Jalkul, this will be possible by the cleavage of the ancient materialistic thought form on the mental levels. It will result and manifest on the emotional level through the goodwill, the lowest expression of Ray 2, which is the love wisdom. So this goodwill, the spirit of goodwill, is essential. And we see it in many aspects of human development, caring for one another, looking after one another. We've got to learn to share, obviously, don't we, the resources of the world. And this goodwill is sort of the starting point, if you like. It's the keynote, you might say, of the best aspects of United Nations. And so, once we develop this goodwill, which comes about through, being people of goodwill, that will certainly make such a difference on this planet, won't it?
Yes, and I think, when we look at the world today, it looks as though, my goodness, there's no goodwill around. You see what what's happening on social media, and just what's happened in New Zealand with everybody hating on this guy who broke the lockdown rules, and it's sort of like people are all so ready to sort of come in with negativity. But actually, if you just take a step back and look at what's happened in the world in the last 200 years, it's we've made amazing progress, I think, in our social justice, in the fact that I often think about sort of the libraries and the swimming pools and things, that sort of 200 years ago, nobody would ever expect, would they, that they would be free and, that anybody could utilise them.
We have made phenomenal changes socially and certainly technology-wise.
Yeah.
But you're right, Benjamin Cream has talked about, and I'll cover that off, where it's actually individual change, it's the personal change. Yeah. It's the changing of our heart. It's that ability to and become someone else.
So we'll see the expansion of our innate love nature, which brings in the inclusiveness which counteracts the evil of separateness. Benjamin Creme quite often talks about separateness, and it is our the evil that we need to fight against.
The great success of the forces of evil on this planet
yes,
has been the belief
right.
in separateness. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. So, and he also talks about, Benjamin Creme talks about, we need to retain the treasures of the past. We don't need to throw everything out of the past. I mean, there's a lot of good things. He was talking about the library at Alexander and how it was destroyed and how we've lost such a huge wealth of ancient information, you might say. And also, asks why on earth we can't have a look at the Vatican Library. There must be a huge wealth of information there. And perhaps we need to write a letter to the Pope and say...
Well, this Pope, above many, would probably be more open to that approach.
Yes, can we just have a look at some of the stuff to start with? Anyway, these go back thousands and thousands of lifetimes that we've got history about. And, so our history is so much more ancient than, the 5,000 odd years that historians often talk about. But we've had everything sort of evolves from the past, like electricity didn't just suddenly appear. It sort of, before that there was gas, before that was candles, and rushed tapers before that. And then earlier on we kept a fire going for light and heat. So you can see we've actually come a long way, and there's a new form of electricity will be brought in with this energy of light, which Maitreya talks about and brings in with this aspect of the will energy of God. So things are actually happening behind the scenes that we're not perhaps aware of, but it will bring in a great civilization, a fantastic time. So we're going to be bringing in and combining science and religion, and I think we need to sort of all be individual scientists in a way to understand this process. The religion that we'll be talking about really is not to do with dogma or anything like that, but be self-discovery, and we will be sort of linking up on that sort of level of understanding the soul's mechanism and how we as individuals work in the system. So many things I think are, talk about the enlightenment that is coming. I think it's amazing.
Yes, I mean, when you think about sort of this whole, science and religion meeting, that for me, that's very much about the whole idea that now that we recognise that the souls inhabit physical bodies, and whereas at one time it used to be Darwinian theory, didn't it? That we all evolved from animals,
yes.
And then the religious people would say that we were just spirits, that we were souls, and now those two are coming together and combining, to see that actually they were both right.
Yes,
that actually
right.
It's human beings are inhabiting souls to have an incarnation on earth.
That's right. Yes.
And so that sort of coming together of those two forces is happening in lots of areas with quantum physics and many other aspects.
Yes.
Okay, John, what have you got for us?
Well, carrying on this theme, what will a new civilization look like? This is a topic that Creme visits time and time again in his writings and talks. And I think he does it to inspire us and also to show us a direction that we can move in. Some of his ideas have been very prophetic. And I urge our listeners to visit the Share website and also to pick up Benjamin Creme's books. You will be inspired. But what will life be like under the guidance of the masters? Benjamin Creme approaches this topic from many angles. He gives us a picture at two levels, the micro and the macro, so individually and globally. I've chosen to follow the micro. Pretty much what do we need to do as individuals? What is our change? And I went through to Maitreya's Mission Volume 3, and I think Peter and I have been using the same book.
Yes, it's great, isn't it, John? It's so big, it's got just about everything you can think of in there.
Yeah, he's asked in February 94, would you like to enlarge on the construction of the new civilization? And Ben goes directly to that individual contribution. He talks about it will come as the result of the transformation in humanity of the sense of who we are, the development of the sense of interdependence, and the correct distribution of energy of the will, in particular the will to good, which creates right human relations. And that was the topic that Peter was talking about. And Benjamin Creme goes on to say the new civilization based on right relationship is the next predestined planned advance for humanity on every level. Politically, internationally, socially, scientifically and culturally, in education and so on. And he finishes with the education of the young will go forward in a very systemised way. The science of the antakarana will be an intrinsic part of the new education which create a culture from which this civilization stems.
So what is that?
So the antakarana is the link between the vehicle incarnation, which we identify as
we call it the rainbow bridge.
And the soul. Mm-hmm. So he's saying that and the impression I got is when you go to an arcade and there's that bench and the monster pokes his head up and you've got a big rubber hammer and you hit it and another one pops up and another one pops up, and I forget the name of that particular game, but you're banging these things as they appear individually. Every time you knock one down, another one pops up. And that's the vision I have of our current society. We're all dealing with problems in an individualised, isolated way. But actually what Creme's saying is we won't get any of this right until humanity starts on a step to relationship. Mm-hmm. That none of this will change until we change and accept our relationship towards each other. He goes on to say that you do not have a civilization and then on top of that build a culture. It's the other way around. We build a culture through the work of the disciples and initiates of the world. From their ideas and ideals stemming from them, the civilization is built. The ideas people are the initiates and the disciples of the kingdom of God, of the hierarchy. He goes on to say they do the initial work of promoting the ideals, which are gradually stepped down until they reach the level of education. And then a whole new civilization is created. And he's saying it can be in a relatively short time. And he's picked up very much on what you were saying, Shafia. Well, he didn't pick up on it because this was written in 1994. Yes. Maybe you've picked up on it.
That's right.
And he's going, if we knew the scientific, educational and religious endeavour of the coming age, we would say to ourselves, how could we possibly bring humanity as we know to that stage? But he's saying, if you think about the things that we took for granted 150 years ago and what we do today, you can see that massive change in human behaviour towards each other.
Yes.
And that then gets reflected in our civilization. Many, many years ago in the mid-80s, I was in Washington, D.C. and went through the Smithsonian, which is a whole range of museums and buildings. And in there was a historic vision of a doctor's surgery. Mm-hmm. And there was a construction of a doctor sitting there with all of these tools laid out. And honestly, it looked like a mechanic shop.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't let any of that stuff near me. Yeah. It was all sharp and big and heavy and blunt.
Yeah.
And I stood there thinking, my goodness, we have come so far in this concept of healing. So that is one of the powerful things that Creme is saying, that once we start this change in our relationship with each other, that is what drives the change in our civilizations.
And it's also, isn't it, about coming together as a group. This is it's the group energy that sustains that relationship. You know, I mean, it has to be more than one person to be in relationship. So if you have the more that you can actually, harmonise as a group, the more the more you can achieve. And
the other thing I like about that, Shafia, is he says you have to have developed a strong personality to bring it into group work, to let it go.
Yes.
You have to let the thing of value go before it has true worth for you. So he's giving me personally permission to be the strong and outrageous personality that I have, so that when I come to work with you guys, I've got to give it up. So that's that personal journey again, so that actually the shaping of human civilization starts with a personal journey.
Yes.
It's a really interesting and nice concept that actually we all have a role in changing our community. And I guess the thing that we're seeing at the moment is those competing forces. The forces that don't want to change, that want to keep things the way they are, whether by benefit or by myth, and the forces that are now building up going, actually, guys, have a look around. We do need to change. We need to change how we treat each other. We need to change how we treat the planet. Krishnamurti has a very similar message around how you think is how you treat others. So really interesting stuff. It's page 77 of Maitreya's Mission Volume 3. Really great ideas about how, as a person, you're involved in the development of our civilization.
So, you can see that in this Miramar fiasco that's going on there, can't you? The military there hanging on for grim death.
Yes.
And all the people want to change. You know, they've got together and they're willing to risk death and torture and whatever else the military can throw at them.
Oh, it's writ large across the stage of America at the moment. The US of A, United States of America. I don't see an awful lot of unity there.
No.
And the competing forces are very clear. Those that are clinging to power and the status quo, thanks very much because it suits me.
Yes.
And those that are saying, you know, we've got major poverty issues, we've got major infrastructure issues. We spend $780 billion a year on armaments every year. That's more than the next 10 nations combined. So when Americans talk about they're fearful of China and Russia, how can they be? You've got more gear than they have put together. So you can see that right now, those competing forces.
You can,
Maitreya is confident that that the new civilization will come through, driven by the youth, which we've talked about many times on this program.
And I think one of the things that I found working in groups is that one thing I've learned sort of as I've grown older is that, you know, I don't have to worry if I can't do everything, because there'll be somebody else who can do it. And that's where, you know, they've got strengths that I haven't got. And it's actually all of us bringing our own strength to the group and not trying to compete about it. But sort of, you know, you're not going to be, you don't have to be everything, you know. You can sort of say, oh no, well, he's much better at talking and, you know, they're much better at this or whatever, you know, and they can work together. And I see that happening quite a lot, you know, because I'm in a board meeting now. I work with you guys and we all sort of work together and try and bring whatever strengths and, you know, things we've got and not try and compete with each other, which is, you know, is a great sort of step forward, I think, you know.
This is the Emergence News on Plains FM. For more information, go to shareinternational.org.
So I thought I'd just finish with a little bit of a section from the Master, because I always love what he says and he's always so relevant. This is from one of his messages, which is the new time for men. It says, from deep within themselves, men sense that the way to the future lies through change, but see not yet the outlines of the path. They await a sign that their needs are known and will be met, but trust not the profusion of signs which everywhere announce the presence of that succour. They hope and fear at once and reject the possibility for that for which they yearn. So it has always been. Meanwhile, sections of mankind press blissfully on, enjoying the easy fortunes which daily astonish their hungry and greedy minds. They are blind to all but their own precarious success and cannot sense the tension or hear the tolling of the bell. The disease of speculation has them in thrall, and thoughts of dying ancient Rome's excesses come to mind. Watching these different and conflicting attitudes stands hierarchy, seeking to aid in every way it can. Only the free will of men prevents direct intervention, but the law is the law and must be obeyed. Nevertheless, much help is extended which mankind never sees. Maitreya will seek to galvanize into action the men and women of goodwill everywhere. Many there are who are but waiting for his call. Thus will be set in motion a great debate in which the basic needs of men everywhere will be examined and appraised. In this way, men will come to know and test the possibilities that change can guarantee, and so find the courage to begin the needed transformation. Thus will it be, and thus will the great Lord advise and guide and inaugurate the new time for men.
All this information can be found on the Share International website, www.share-international.org. Scorpio Books in Christchurch carries the magazine and some books. And also don't forget the podcasts, which are available on the Plains FM website.
We welcome your comments, questions and feedback. Please contact us at emergencenews@gmail.com.
The opportunity to join our transmission is available Monday and Wednesday evenings and Thursday mornings, which gives us the possibility to do a service meditation in conjunction with Masters.